Good morning. Welcome to 4Media and to our Friday Q&A live stream. Great to have you joining us again. It's coming up to 100 days since I last walked out of the 4Media building. And like many of you, I suppose, I'm still not sure will I'll actually be going into the office again. But as we've all seen, things are changing day by day. Premier League football is back, shops are opening, and, travel could soon be back on the agenda. Then, of course, for some people, there's still not much light at the end of the tunnel. The hospitality industry, entertainment, the arts. This week, several West End theatres said they wouldn't reopen till January at the earliest. Very sad. In many ways, the PR business is reflecting this schizophrenic world at the moment. For some of us, it's looking pretty busy. For others, well, it's still tough out there. And of course, that's why we at 4Media started these live streams almost 3 months ago. 3 months, wow. In a bid to do our help to help everybody in a difficult climate. And for the time being, we're still here. Each week, we put your questions to a leading light from a different section of the UK media. And if you need our help or advice on anything at all, then please do get in touch with one of the team. We've been fortunate enough to have had a very busy week. We've run several radio days, mostly remotely, but we've even managed to use our Clerkenwell studios for a couple. And of course, we've been launching surveys and gaining print and online coverage, as well as producing film content, podcasts, and the like. For those who don't know me, I'm Alan Edwards. I'm the head of news at 4Media. I'm the former night editor of The Sun, with far too many years than I care to remember in national newspapers under my belt. Between me and my team, and Sam Dibley and his broadcast team, we have pretty comprehensive insights into the media. We're here to help if we can. Today, I'm delighted to return to broadcast. Radio has been enjoying a resurgence in recent times. And in the last 3 months, that's really gone into overdrive. Listener figures are soaring for both national and regional channels as people turn to it as a trusted source of both information and entertainment in a time of crisis. Our guest today has two jobs. Well, sort of. Johnny Seifert is currently the showbiz editor for Talk Radio, and he also produces Badass Woman's Hour XL and Late Night with Mark Dolan. But he's about to become the entertainment producer for the brand new station Times Radio, which launches, I think, in 10 days' time. Johnny also hosts and produces his own podcast, Secure the Insecure. You know the drill. Many people have sent questions in advance, which I'll put to Johnny on your behalf. There's also a facility for you to tap in questions, which will appear down the side of the screen. And I'll do my best to get to as many as I can in the 30 minutes we've got available. Now, it gives me great pleasure to go over to Talk Radio and Times Radio's Johnny Seifert. Johnny, hello. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Alan. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So tell me, what a time to be launching a radio station in the middle of a pandemic.
Do you know what? It's probably the best time because people are looking for lots of different types of advice. People are looking for more information. They're diversifying what they actually want to listen to and how they want to listen to it because people are staying at home, people are starting to move out again, and people just want that most up-to-date information and they want to be able to cut through it. And the difference between what Times Radio are doing and, for example, what LBC do are very different things. And Times Radio has come at a time where we just want the information that's balanced. We don't want opinions. We don't want it to be people fighting and shouting over each other. We just want to hear concisely exactly what's happening with experts so we can really understand the world that we're living in right now.
So a pretty interesting concept. So what would you say its position is in the market? I mean, were we talking Radio 4 here? Are we talking slightly younger demographic? What are we looking at?
A lot of people will compare it to Radio 5 Live and Radio 4. A lot of the production team and the presenters have come from the BBC. So instantly, there's always going to be that analysis and that comparison. But I think what you do with every radio station is you don't compare them. We had it when Talk Radio launched as well, that people thought, oh, it's a rival to LBC. But what we do on Talk Radio is very different to LBC. Yes, there's going to be things that cross over. So types of guests. For example, on Talk Radio, yesterday we had Dominic Raab talking. yes, he'll be doing the rounds like you'd have him on LBC and Talk Radio. The Times Radio is positioning itself as a radio station for the Times newspaper. It's for 25 to 54-year-olds as ABC One audience, and the idea basically is that they will then buy the Times newspaper afterwards. So the Times newspaper want to increase their subscribers, so let's launch a radio station so you get an idea of the sound, and then you'd go and buy the Times newspaper afterwards. So they really go hand in hand and completely reflect each other's audiences.
So I mentioned in the introduction that it starts in about 10 days' time. What's the actual date, and what kind of, give me like a flavour of the presenters that you're going to be having on there?
Yep, so we launched on the 29th of June, 10 days' time on the Monday. Presenters range, we've got a really good lineup. So breakfast is with Asma Mir and Stig Abel. Stig Abel you might know from LBC and reviewing the papers on Sky. He's our launch director as well, so he's put the whole station together. And then he's doing the breakfast show of Asma Mir, who you might know from Radio 4's Saturday Live. Then we've got Matt Chorley at 10 o'clock. Matt Chorley had the Red Box, he's a Time columnist, a great presenter, very politically aware. Then we've got Mariella Fostock from 1 o'clock, which is a lot more culture. She's come from Radio 4. So all that culture, the book club she does, she's bringing all that over. 4 o'clock, we've got John Pienaar, used to do politics on 5 Live. And then at 7 o'clock, we've got Phil Williams, also from 5 Live, who's going to do a bit of entertainment and a bit of a roundup of the day's news. Other presenters include Giles Corrin, who's been on Talk Radio for a couple of months now doing the Sunday slot and also has his Times column. And also one of my favourites is Michael Portillo, who's doing Friday nights from 7 to 10 p.m. as well.
He's a very good speaker, Portillo, and yeah, as you say, Stig Abel, I know very well from his times in newspapers too. So will the station reflect the content of the Times?
Yes, absolutely. For example, Times columnists and writers will be coming onto the station to analyse their articles. And it will still feel that thing. So if you think about a Times newspaper, and when you open that paper, you've got those big stories. You'll start with those big stories, then you'll have the world stories. So we will reflect the world as well. So for example, on breakfast, in the first hour, we're going to look at what has happened whilst we've been sleeping, but the world's been awake. Then you're going to have a bit of culture with Mariella, the Times 2 section with Mariella. So those books that they feature, those types of articles they do. And then you'll have a bit of the entertainments and arts with Mariella and with Phil Williams as well. So very much what you see in the Times newspaper is what you'll get on the Times radio.
So how do you think you'll differentiate yourself between other stations out there? I mean, we've mentioned Radio 4, 5 Live. There's other talk channels out there, LBC, Talk Radio itself.
Yeah, so we're not a phone-in station. We don't just do phone-ins. We're also not looking to fight. So we don't want it to be that you've got a presenter and they're interrupting to get that really good news line of, presenter slams. Nick Ferrari and Diane Abbott is a great example. We're not going to do anything like that. What we're going to do is be really expert-led, really inform, and we want to do it intelligently. So we really want a balanced agreement. And if we have someone who is a bit different, we want them to be given the platform to really speak their mind and tell us what they actually think. We want them to go in depth. We want it to be intelligent. We want it to be witty, but also we do want it to be opinionated. So we're not looking for fights. We're not looking for phone-ins. We just want it to be really balanced and just for you to basically really understand the news and where we're coming from with a range of voices.
So just taking you back there, you mentioned Giles Corrin. With restaurants being closed at the moment, what will he be talking about to start with? And what kind of guests will he be looking for?
So Giles is going to be doing a 3-hour show on a Friday. He's doing the 1 to 4 p.m. slot. His first hour will be quite newsy. He's got a feature in the second hour at 2:45, which is a chef of the week. So it will be a celebrity chef more or less all the time. And that chef will basically look at a recipe and look at the roundup of the food news stories of the week. So it's not necessarily as a restaurant critic, it's more looking at food in general. And his last hour, he does a feature called Desert Island Crisps. So he's been doing this feature on Talk Radio for a couple of months now. And a celebrity will come on and talk about their favorite snack and also their life. So very much like Desert Island Discs, but instead it's Desert Island Discs. And people you'll expect here are people like Claudia Winkleman, Gary Lineker, people of that etiquette. So we're really looking for those high-level guests. On Talk Radio, we can get away with having a Love Island star and someone from Towie and Made in Chelsea, amongst someone, for example, if we could get Stephen Fry. The Times Radio are going to have the AAA listers. So people like Gary Lineker are your prime examples of types of people that we should be getting on there with Giles.
So what can PRs do to kind of be part of that conversation, or to get their stuff mentioned on there?
So what we basically looking at with the Times newspaper and the Times radio is the fact that it's very much news led. So whilst on talk radio you'll get more health and business, and you'll get lifestyle, and then you'll get a bit of celebrities, and then you'll go back to the news at the top of the hour again. With Times radio, it's going to be very news focused, and everything fits that news agenda. So we will be looking for stories that fit the news agenda of the day or of the following day. So for example, with Black Lives Matter recently, would have been looking for those big spokespeople who could talk about the statues, who could have talked about the protests and come on air the following day. So those are really good ideas to get those key people involved in the scene to be talking. Secondly, we're looking for those big celebrities who can join in the talking points of the day. So people who are politically driven, people who have an opinion on politics, but also are show busy and also can fit your news briefs of doing a normal PR story. So we don't want reality stars in there. We want people, for example, on Michael Portillo's level, who can talk about today's politics and talk a bit about showbiz as well. So someone like Ed Balls, for example, he's been on Strictly Come Dancing. He's a household name as a celebrity, but we would have him talking all about politics as well.
So the question we've got coming in here is, what about opportunities for things like on-air tastings or sampling of products when it comes to Times Radio?
As far as I know, no, we won't be doing on-air tastings. It's more for talk radio and the tabloidy way to do it. So for talk radio, we do on-air tastings. We do it at 12:45 to 1 p.m. with Mike Graham on a Thursday. For example, he did a picnic tasting a couple of weeks ago. We live stream everything on YouTube and on social media. So we saw him open up the picnic box and try a couple of the foods in there. We do food tastings, for example, when it's themed. So on Valentine's Day, for Christmas treats, for Easter treats. So we will do tastings like that on Talk Radio, but that's the very big thing. Talk Radio and Times Radio are both owned by News UK, which means there has to be a little bit of difference between the two. So we would very much keep the food tastings to Talk Radio and not to Times Radio.
And do you share in that kind of way? Do you collaborate? If somebody came to you and offered you something, would you say, do you know what, not for us, but I'll put you onto so and so at Talk Radio? It sounds like it's just the sort of thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the reason for my role, basically, is I work across both stations. So I'm the showbiz editor for Talk Radio and the entertainment producer for Times Radio. So everything that comes to me, I then share between Talk Radio and Times Radio. The ideal thing basically to do is for you to say, right, here is half an hour. We will do, for example, a guest on with Julia Hartley-Brewer on Talk Radio Breakfast from 9:30 to 9:45. Hang up the phone, and then from 9:45 to 10 a.m. do Stig Abel and Asma Mir on Times Radio. And therefore, in half an hour, you've done 2 national radio stations. Most guests will cross over, and therefore, what will happen is I will give you a Talk Radio show, and then I will hand it to a couple of Times Radio shows and see who's interested. But more or less, every guest and client you've got should fit one of our 2 stations. And then also we've got Virgin Radio and Talksport as well to mention as well. So the ideal really being between 9 and 10 a.m. you could do 4 national radio stations within an hour with a massive name.
Sounds like if with the right kind of talent, there's great opportunities there. Going back to Times Radio, what about business? Will business coverage be a main part of what you do?
We do have a business show, Early Breakfast, from 5 to 6 a.m. And business, it depends what it is. It depends how big on the day that news story is. So it will very much be dependent on the news stories of the day. And therefore, if there is a big business story that needs a lot of analyzing, then we would do that. So, for example, if EasyJet cut 500,000 jobs or 1 million jobs, we would cover that in depth because that's affecting a lot of people. For normal business updates and little news stories, there might be a place for, but we're really looking at those big stories of the day that we're going to analyze on Times Radio.
Okay, question coming in from somebody watching at the moment, Nina. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Very good question. That's the best question to always ask that people don't always ask. Email me is probably the best way. It's Johnny, JOHNNY, Seifert, SEIFERT, at talkradio.co.uk. So that's Johnny, JOHNNY, Seifert, SEIFERT, at talkradio.co.uk. Or you can email me, johnny.seifert at times.radio. So not .co.uk, just johnny.seifert @times.radio. And on social media, I'm at Johnny Seifert on Twitter and Instagram as well. So if there's anything that you want to tag me in to get an interest because you've got coverage in a newspaper and you want to direct it to me to get it on air as well on radio, at Johnny Seifert on Twitter and Instagram, JOHNNY SEIFERT.
Great stuff. What about exclusives? Are they important to you, or do you think they'll go to the newspaper first?
Exclusives, it depends what it is. I would say we very much like exclusives, but we're not going to pay for the exclusives. So we would rather react than do an exclusive unless we get a good exclusive news line, but we're not chasing exclusive stories necessarily.
And when it comes to audio content, would you ever use pre-packaged audio content that came in?
Definitely, if it adds color and it's multi-platform, we would definitely add it. I think audio is fascinating. I absolutely love audio, and I love what you can do with audio because you can get really nice layers and build up a really nice picture and paint those pictures with sound, with voices. So anytime you have got audio, we really like it. So for example, if we're promoting a TV show, we would want to play a trailer. We might play a theme tune from a TV show. All it does is it recognizes it with the audience. The audience are able to identify where it is. They're able to set the scene, and then you go in with the interview.
Another question coming in here from Risha, excuse the pronunciation. Is there any scope for brand managers or expert comments giving consumers or cleaning tips? Wow, that's very specific.
If it fits the news stories of the day, so if there's a big story about cleaner shortages or anything to do with cleaners, yes, but it's very much dependent on the day. And I think the best thing to do is on the day is early on in the day when you've read the newspapers, let's say at 8 a.m., you send a message to everyone and go, look, this is a big news story. I can speak about it, or I have someone to speak about it. We're always going to be looking for those types of guests. So, for example, the Uncle Ben's rice yesterday. If there was someone who could talk about Uncle Ben's rice, we are going to cover that. It's a big story. So, if you've got someone, let us know because we're going to want to do it.
So I suppose the answer there is be as quick and reactive as you possibly can be.
Yeah, exactly. All about being reactive. For talk radio, for news stories, we've got press releases at talkradio.co.uk, which all producers get. So if you've ever got a guest, press releases at talkradio.co.uk will get to all producers, but it is very much about being reactive and proactive as much as you can because producers start at different times of the day. And when they get in and they're choosing their stories they want to do, you might have started work 5 hours earlier and you can get ahead of the game like that.
Are there any big issues such as mental health, environment, loneliness that you'll be looking at specifically as you start up the new
Always.
station?
Phil Williams, 7 to 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, will be doing a lot about mental health. On Talk Radio, we do mental health throughout the shows. We're running a campaign this week all about loneliness. So we're playing clips about people being lonely all the way through the schedule. And they're so important topics. They're really social, heartfelt topics that all our listeners care about. So we are very active in giving everyone a voice. So mental health definitely is a really good topic that we want to get involved in.
So you mentioned, the need to be reactive and also how to get in touch with you. But when's a good time to get in touch? What
All
kind of
hours.
is it? How far in advance? I mean, is it worth pitching you something that's going to happen in a week's time?
Absolutely. The more you can get ahead of the game, the better. The thing is, we are booking every day about 200 guests across Talk Radio a day. We therefore need people as soon as possible. So the quicker you get them in touch, the better. So for celebrities, for example, as you guys do, and other broadcast PR companies do, you might tell me about a celebrity for 3 months down the line. All I need is the name. I don't really care what they're promoting. All I want is the name because if it's a good name, we will take them because we will plug your brand 3 times. So for example, if you're working with Tesco, we'll say Tesco in the introduction. Your client celebrity guest will say Tesco in the middle, and then you'll say Tesco in the conclusion when we're going into the break from the presenter again, and where to get in touch. So we're really good at promoting brands. We want them as quick as possible. So as soon as you tell us you've got this person in 3 months down the line, we've put it in the calendar, forget about it. On the day, we'll do it. And then proactive news stories. as quick as you can get it in. There's no harm in emailing someone at 1 o'clock in the morning. We will answer those emails when we get them and when the time is right. Don't call us because it just badgers and then it'll put people off. But email's always the best way. We do see every email. If you think that an email you've sent hasn't been seen and you think it's really worthy, do chase it again. But we do get it, and we get a lot of press releases every day. I have about 300 emails come in a day to me. So 150 of them are probably spam, and also are press releases that don't interest me. It's just I've added up on someone's list. So it's very easy to miss emails that actually do matter and that you do think have a place on the station.
So unfair question this, but can you give us any examples of really good or really bad PR approaches?
I think just badgering. So I think when you're looking for a reason why it's a no, and then you keep badgering to say, but it's a yes because you think you know better than the radio station and the producer. So I've worked with PRs before who I've said, no, this doesn't fit us. And they fought and fought and fought for it. And I've had emails and emails and phone calls and texts and whatnot to basically pressure me into doing a guest. And I'm never going to give in just because you need to get your client coverage. If you've been promised to your client that you're going to get them national coverage, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get that national coverage. You might approach them, but you're not necessarily going to get them. And I think when you do that, it puts producers off, and then it's hard for you to work with them again. The most important thing is to make a really good relationship with producers, to make a really good relationship with me, because I will do you favors when I can do it, but it's not going to happen on every single guest.
So do you think there's any merit in PRs perhaps sending you a list of spokespeople they have access to and the topics they can cover so you have these to hand?
To be honest, they will get lost. I think it works when you're doing a specific news story topic. So when it's got a really good news story that's a couple of days. So for example, coronavirus. We did a feature on Badass Women's Hour where every week we looked at 3 charities helping to make a difference with the coronavirus. So there are companies like Corona Buddy, the Trussell Trust that had food banks, and therefore we wanted to highlight the work they're doing. So if you had a list of here's 3 companies that are doing stuff for coronavirus, absolutely, we definitely want that. But sending a list 2 years in advance isn't going to help because it will just get lost and we're not going to really be thinking about it. So it's very much, again, being proactive and going, right, this is the big news story of the day. Here's 3 people who can talk about it. Who do you want?
Great. That brings me to a question we've had in as well. Do you, but a list that talks really to Times Radio, do you see yourselves becoming very much a campaigning station, or are you much more down the middle than that?
I would say more down the middle than that. We're not looking to do big campaigns as far as I know yet. We're very much reflecting on the news agenda of the day.
And another specific question, what kinds of sports coverage will Times Radio be looking at?
I'm not actually sure. Sorry. But I would say we
Presumably
have
you'll
got
have.
Talksport as a whole radio station. So, we will be doing sports when it matters rather than it being full sports shows. We will be having sports bulletins on Times Radio, but I doubt they'll be dedicated sports shows.
Okay. Uh, are there any charitable causes you'll be supporting? For instance, the environment or homeless charities, or maybe something involved with the current crisis?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So
Pass.
another question we've had: have the last 3 months changed the planning at all for what you're planning to do with Times Radio?
No, not at all. I think the only thing is we're not having guests in the studio. So all guests will come on Skype or on the phone, which should make it easier for you as well. So, I mean, the other thing to think about is if you're doing a radio day, the guest might not fit the schedule for that day. So for Times Radio, we've got a different schedule between Monday and Thursday and the weekend. And on Talk Radio, we've got Monday to Friday and weekend shows. So sometimes you might be doing a celebrity on a Wednesday and it's a really good celebrity, but it doesn't fit our daytime presenters. It fits more our weekend presenters. Hopefully it gives you the bit more of a flexibility that you can have your client on the phone on a Saturday rather than on that Wednesday. But using the phone, using Skype are the 2 ways that guests can be used at the moment. And that will change at some point. I just don't know when yet.
Will everything be live, or will you be doing some pre-record interviews?
Most of the station will be live, but there are options to pre-record if we do need to do them and the guest warrants it.
So looking to the future, will you, as times allow, will you be having guests in the studio?
Absolutely. The benefit of the studios are we've got the most amazing studios in the world. If you've ever been to our studios of News UK building, you know how incredible it is. I worked on the 14th floor looking at the River Thames all day, every day. The guests come in and it's that whole experience that we give them. So at Christmas, we've got a Santa sleigh that they love having pictures in. When it's hot, we've got a massive terrace to sit outside on, which is amazing. And celebrities love it. I remember the Strictly dancers came in and they were in awe and they were taking selfies. And we really are giving them an experience as well as doing an interview, but it feels very special for them. We have state-of-the-art studios. We are live streaming on Talk Radio. We have cameras in all studios, 4 cameras at least, and therefore we want to make it a visual experience. And we do want to have celebrities in the studio. And also the benefit is you can do your 4 national stations. You can have pictures to show the coverage that you're getting, and it makes it more personable. It means the presenter can see your guest eye to eye. But for now, we're doing Skypes, and therefore we can still get a bit of that experience, just not too much.
So bearing in mind now that we're moving out of lockdown, how do you see the type of stories that you'll be covering? How do you see the trends moving?
It depends on the day-to-day news stories. You can't really predict the news. From a news cycle side, it's whatever is happening. From a celebrity point of view, it's very hard. We've had a lot of celebs on Talk Radio in the past 12 weeks of lockdown, but a lot of them are celebrities who are doing something, making a difference. So, for example, Joe Wicks, we had talking about his YouTube series. We had Anton Debeck about his YouTube workouts as well. We haven't got as many TV programs, films, and music to promote at the moment. And that's why if you have got celebrities, it's really crucial you get them in now, because we have got that time to fill where we do need celebrities. We've got specific celebrity spots and we are always looking for celebrities for those slots. So if you have got a celebrity, let's get them in. Let's do that now because there is a space. Because when it comes to, let's say, next March and everything's being shown on TV, film, and music again, you'll be competing for those slots a lot more.
So when we do get back to to normal, whatever that is ISDN quality lines, are they necessary? Is that good enough?
I think we've moved away from ISDN, to be honest. I think we've seen during the lockdown that ISDN doesn't necessarily make it the be all and end all. Yes, the quality is good, but we're more interested now in doing guests on Skype for quality purposes and the fact that we can see them and the fact that we can make these split screens now with our presenters in the studio next to the celebrity on a split screen as we are doing right now. So, yes, ISDNs are important, but I think they're a thing of the past, to be honest.
And looking forward, what kind of audience, you might not want to answer this, but what kind of audience figures are you aiming for?
4 Times Radio.
Yeah.
We're looking for people to subscribe to the Times newspaper. So the idea is that you found the station on DAB and then you're going to go, okay, I've always understood the Times heritage and the legacy that the newspaper has, but I might not necessarily have bought it anytime soon. So basically, we want people to be listening to the station going, oh, I really like that analysis. I'm going to go and buy the newspaper now. But figures I'm not going to talk about. And also, it's not relevant for what the station is trying to do.
Yeah, I get it. It was an unfair question. I didn't really expect you to answer it, but thanks very much anyway. Listen, Johnny, it's been brilliant talking. Are now having 1 or 2 technical problems, certainly from this end. So if anybody can hear me, I'm not sure. But can I just say thank you for answering all those questions, giving us such a privileged insight into the world of radio. Thank you to everybody else for tuning in. Really hope you found it interesting. Remember, feel free to catch up with any of the team at 4media if there's anything we can help with. And we look forward to seeing you next Friday. In the meantime, as ever, look after yourselves and stay well. Bye-bye.